Questions orales. L'honorable.
Oral questions. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Monsieur le Président, après...
Mr. Speaker, after the attacks by Hamas nearly 2 weeks ago, there are Canadians who are still in danger. 4,000 Canadians are looking for help from the federal government to get out of Israel. About 300 Canadians are trying to leave Gaza. And between 40,000 and 70,000 Canadians are in Lebanon. What is the government doing to protect Canadians that are in danger? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, since this is the first time we are all in this House, since the horrible terrorist attacks by Hamas, allow me to say this. Canada is with the State of Israel and the Israeli people. Canada is at the side of Israel and the people of Israel, and they can count on the continued support of Canada. We demand the immediate liberation of all hostages and unequivocally condemn the terrorist attacks done by Hamas. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Innocent lives, be they Palestinian or Israeli, Jewish, Muslim or Christian or otherwise, are all equally precious. Countless of those lives have been lost or put in danger as a direct result of the sadistic attacks of Hamas. And that was the purpose of those attacks, to exact maximum damage on both Israelis and Palestinians and thwart any attempt for peace. We know that the regime in Iran was behind these attacks. And we know that the most powerful organizer of terrorism in the world is the IRGC, which operates legally in Canada today. Will the government accept the Conservative common sense bill to criminalize the IRGC in Canada today?
L'Honorable Vice-Premier Ministre.
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this is the first time we are all present in this House since these horrific terrorist attacks by Hamas on the State of Israel and the Israeli people. So I would like to begin by being very clear in English this time. Canada stands with the State of Israel and with the Israeli people. Israel can count on Canada's support. Canada condemns unequivocally Hamas's terrorist attacks, and we call for the immediate release of all hostages.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I also wish to congratulate you. The United States created a group of 5 powers, including Germany, Italy, the United Kingdom, and France, to speak with a stronger voice in the face of the crisis that the entire world is facing, which is centered on Gaza. Canada, disappointingly, was not invited to participate in spite of the importance of the Jewish community here in Canada. Did the government ask to be part of this group? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Canada is an important member of NATO, the G7, and last week I went to Morocco and the Ministers of Finance for the G7. This was the first in-person group of G7 ministers confirmed our support for the State of Israel, the people of Israel, and together we condemned the terrorist attacks led by Hamas. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Unfortunately, the United States State Department didn't see things that way because it simply did not invite Canada. And it's deplorable because it prevents the government from doing its work well for its own communities, its own citizens. This morning, I talked about the relevance and the opportunity for everyone here to talk along similar lines in order to defend the interests of the Canadian Jewish community and peaceful Muslims. If they could convene leaders to privately discuss the issues. The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I very much appreciate the reality that all members of this House are facing members of the Liberal Party, members of the Conservative Party, members of the Bloc, and members of the NDP. We are all ready to show that, for us, condemning Hamas's terrorist attacks and supporting Israel is not a partisan issue. It's a Canadian issue. That's the reality, and it's very important.
Mr. Speaker, we are all shocked by the brutality, the kidnappings, and the targeting of civilians, including the elderly and children, by Hamas militants. And now the region is spiraling. Thousands of innocent Palestinians and Israelis have been killed in a conflict that they are not responsible for. Today we learned a fifth Canadian was murdered, and we know more Canadians are amongst the captives. What is this government doing to ensure the hostages are protected and returned to safety?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I am glad to also hear the honourable colleague from the NDP be clear in her condemnation of these terrorist attacks. It is very important to show that this is not a partisan issue for Canada. Clearly, I share and our government shares her concern for the hostages, and we call for their immediate release.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Strathcona.
We're profoundly alarmed by what we are witnessing in Gaza. The UN has said that nearly half of Gaza's people have been forced to flee from their homes and that morgues are overflowing. This is a humanitarian crisis of extreme proportions. It took almost a week for the minister to start paying attention to the impact this war has had on Palestinians, even though thousands of people have been killed. Israelis and Palestinians have the right to live in peace. Why won't this government stand up for international law and call for a ceasefire?
Hear, hear. Vice-Premier Ministre.
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Our government is very clear that we support the State of Israel, and we recognize Israel's right to defend itself within international law. As the Prime Minister has said, we are deeply concerned by the dire humanitarian situation in Gaza. International law must be respected, and Canada will continue to support civilians of Gaza facing urgent humanitarian needs. That's why we announced an initial commitment of $10 million in humanitarian assistance to trusted partners. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.